Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Several people sent me this story out of Wisconsin, and it really makes me wonder whether this is something that's actually happening or not. But Wisconsin lawmakers are working on passing a ban on license plate flipping devices, just like you'd see in the movies. News 8 Now ran the story by JDS McGee, and it's from WKBT out of La Crosse. And the question is, really? Are these things out there? So Wisconsin lawmakers are working on legislation that would ban high-tech license plate flipping devices, bringing the state just the governor's signature away from outlawing gadgets that allow drivers to hide their plates at the push of a button. The bill targets devices that enable drivers to flip or conceal their license plates, technology that law enforcement officials say has become a growing tool for avoiding traffic tickets and evading criminal charges. The legislation now sits on the governor's desk awaiting his signature. Now, I've seen these in the movies. James Bond is driving along. He's being chased by somebody, and he presses a button, and the license plate flips. At least I think I've seen that in James Bond. Or maybe that's Jethro Bodine and his Double Knot Spy. But are these really a thing in real life? I heard of a guy years ago in Florida who had a cover that went over his license plate when he went underneath the toll cameras. But this is a license plate flipper, so you'd actually have, I guess, two license plates back there. One's a real one, one's a decoy. And when you don't want anyone to know which one's the real one, you put out the decoy. So we were told by several law enforcement agencies that these devices are being used and they're readily available, said a state rep who represents Wisconsin's 20th Assembly District. The proposed law would make it illegal to own or use one, with penalties reaching up to $1,000 in fines or jail time for violators. The technology, reminiscent of gadgets from James Bond films, allows drivers to manipulate their license plates with electronic controls. But you'll notice it says it'd be illegal to own or use one. Drop the flipper. Local leaders say the timing of the bill addresses a critical public safety need as traffic violations increase across Wisconsin. A council member for District 7 says, we already have a problem with people running red lights and speeding, not only in La Crosse, but the whole area. Only people getting caught with this are the ones that are breaking the law. Supporters of the legislation view the ban as a necessary tool to hold drivers accountable for their actions on Wisconsin roads. A pedestrian who's interviewed for the story says, I feel like if you're going to be doing something that's illegal, I feel like you should be held accountable and honest. I think it sends a message that, you can try it, but we are finding ways to stay ahead of you on this, says another one of the reps. If the governor signs the bill, the ban would take effect statewide, allowing law enforcement agencies across Wisconsin to begin enforcement immediately. And I'll admit, I've never heard of one of these other than in the movies. I've never seen them being used. I heard about the one guy who had something that would cover his plate, but my memory of it, and it's kind of vague, it happened a while ago, was it was like a homemade device. But if they claim they're out there and readily available, I suppose. But it's interesting because you can't think of a legal reason why you'd actually want to have one of these. And that's the one thing they've got going for them. Because they're going to outlaw something, whether it exists or not. You just want to make sure they don't outlaw something that actually could have a practical use. And I can't think of a practical use for a license plate flipper except for in the movies. So I suppose if you're a movie maker in Wisconsin and a plot point of yours is that the getaway car has got a license plate flipper on it, you're going to have to work around the laws or get an exemption or do something so you can shoot your movie. Now, I can tell you that I had a friend years ago who owned a gas station, not the one I worked for, but this is just a friend of mine who owned a gas station for many, many years. And one day I came by the gas station and there was a whole hubbub of activity, a beehive of activity going on. And I said, what's going on? And one of the workers said, we just had an incident where somebody tried to steal some gasoline. It was a self-serve gas station. And they pulled in, filled up, and then jumped in their car and drove off. And the owner of the gas station jumped in his car and chased after them and actually called the police on a cell phone and got the police there, and they arrested these people for trying to take off. And one of the funny things about it is that when they caught the person, they had a rag tucked in over their license plate. Now, you might say, Steve, that's an interesting anecdote, but you're a lawyer. Who cares? But you understand, I do tell these stories for a reason. And what's the number one defense going to be to someone who drove off without paying for gas? I forgot. I'm quoting Steve Martin, by the way. I forgot. Oh, you forgot, but you just happened to have that rag over your license plate so we couldn't see your license plate? What are the odds that you pulled into the gas station with that rag pulled over your license plate and then drove off and you forgot to pay for the gas, and it just so happened to be that one time you had a rag over your license plate? Because you know darn well you don't drive around all day long, 7 days a week, with your license plate obscured by a rag that you tucked in over the license plate. And so the rag over the license plate shows that the person, more likely than not, intended to obscure their plate so they could get away. Because what usually happens if there's a drive-off at a gas station is somebody runs out and gets the license plate, and that's the end of it. And luckily, the owner of the station was bored and was near his car, and he saw this happen. And they caught the person. And as the police walked up to the car, they noticed there's a rag tucked into the license plate. And I didn't see it happen, but my friend told me the story, and as he was telling me the story, he emphasized that there was that rag tucked in over the license plate. Why'd they do that? They did that because they were intending to steal the gas. And in Michigan, there's a law that if you get caught shoplifting or stealing from an establishment that sells things, on the one hand, it's a crime. On the other hand, you can be sued for it. I mentioned this before. A lot of laws have a parallel for a civil action. And so the law in Michigan allows a merchant to sue a thief, not just for what they stole, but you can also get a multiplier on it, plus attorney fees and court costs. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth it for you to do that. So someone comes in, steals $40 worth of gas and drives off, and they get caught and they get prosecuted. Well, number one, they owe you $40. But if you got to go to all the trouble to try to recover your $40, you deserve some compensation for that. Besides that, the law sometimes wants to discourage people from doing bad things. So the law also has a provision that says that you may have to pay more than the $40 you stole, plus attorney fees and court costs. And those can add up. So it made me think of this, but I did not know that license plate flipping devices are being used and are readily available. I did not know that. So just to let you know, if you're in Wisconsin, pay attention to the news. If the governor signs this, you may have to remove that license plate flipper from your car, if you've got one, okay? So I don't doubt that the technology exists. I'm just wondering how many people have actually done that. Because all it takes is one person driving in traffic to see someone else with a license plate flipper. And you think that somebody called the cops, but just to let you know, the guy who's got this real license plate has got a flipper on his car and saw him go through a thing where he should have paid. Because remember, if other people get away without paying, it does cost you if you actually do pay, because you're one of the people who's actually paying. So there you go. Hey, everybody who sent that, thank you very much. From News 8 Now, J.D. McGee wrote that from WKBT, Wisconsin. Wisconsin lawmakers pass ban on license plate flipping devices, which apparently are all over the place. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough.